What is going on, everybody? We are live, MidLife Live for April, and I am so excited for my panel. You know, I had a lot of ideas on what we were going to talk about, and then some things kind of changed a few days ago, so we're going to incorporate a lot of that. But just in case you're unaware, let's take a look at what the panel is tonight.
All right. MidLife Live, panel number 4. Sometimes the original's better than the sequel, and sometimes the sequel is better than the original. How will that play out for a MidLife Live? Well, we will find out when my buddy Darren of Return to Collecting rejoins us.
So without further ado,
he's a good friend with an insane collection. Card after card after card, month after month, he picks up bangers. Iconic cards, beautiful cards, vintage cards, pre-war cards. Just about any gorgeous card you can think of is in Darren's collection. And he has been my co-host of Off Topic for well over a year, pushing 2. And he will be back along with our good pal. Who is it? Who else will be rejoining us? Well, how about Tony, Southern Collector 14, who loves his cards.
Tony loves his baseball cards.
Talking about big collections, my goodness. He's got autographed Jackies. He's got Clemente rookies. He's got more autographed Jackies. 52 Mantle, no problem. More Cobb? Yes, please. More Cobb again? Yes, please. Every time you turn around, Tony picks up another massive card. So, Tony will be back for another MidLife Live. So we've got Darren, and we've got Tony, who loves those cards. Again, card after card. How about a Ruth? Yes, please. So who should round out the group tonight? Well, again, it's a sequel. So the one, the only, Mr. Mike Petty will be rejoining us as well.
How are you there, liver lips?
Hey, what's up, fever feet?
As the opportunity came up, I just picked them off.
I am going to start with the tops. Now, I want to collect them all, as you well know. You know, you got guys that are doing blow, and I want to get the tops base, the traded gimmicks. You get in these comps, you get in these bidding wars, and I tell you, that money goes fast.
The royal blue, the aqua, the silver crackle foil board, the yellow foil.
Just spiraling out of control with all these breaking.
Green crackle foil board, orange crackle foil board, red crackle foil board.
Shady practices.
Yippee, Independence Day.
Freaking tired of these guys. Breakers. Stop breaking. Open your own packs for crying out loud. The other thing that pissed me off the other day, Joe Wood.
The rabbit, the flowers, the umbrella, the watering can, the birds.
Next thing you know, it's not even delivered yet, and it's on eBay for double. So what is this shit?
And something I can really sink my teeth into is the 1989 Topps baseball.
I'm freaking sick of it. I'm so tired of it.
MidLife Live number 4. Oh yeah, April 29th, 9 p.m. Eastern. You will not want to miss this one. It's going to be a blast.
All right. Now, I don't ask a lot. If you haven't noticed, it's been like a year and a half since in any of my videos I said, hey, make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit the subscribe. I don't really ask for a lot. If you want to be here and hang out, I want you here and I want you hanging out. But the one thing that does mean a lot to me, and I do ask, is that you guys come out for this. And we're already at 115 people in the chat. So you guys coming out like this, honestly, is what makes this so much fun. So thank you to everybody. I'm going to show some comments. But first, Darren, I think we stirred up a hornet's nest.
Yes. That's cool. That's always fun to do, isn't it?
You know, we had Mike on. We didn't really think much of it. We started talking about SGC, which was one of the topics that might come up. And then we just started talking, and I've not had more people come to me and say, I wish I was on. I've got some things to say about this. Oh my gosh. Did you get texts or was it just me?
No, I was getting texts from people. People were making, literally within like hours of it dropping, people were making videos about it. That was a pretty viral, it was a pretty viral topic.
Grading is one of these things where it's kind of a necessary evil, I think. It's, if you want to call it that, it's just one of these things where it's part of the hobby at this point. It is what it is. We need to be aware of it, but at the same time, there are parts of it that sometimes make us wonder, and I think that's a fair way of saying it. So, rounding out our panel, let me pull on two guys. First up, Tony, Southern Collector 14. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing awesome. I'm ready for this.
I am too, and I'm ready to hang out with my guys. So, again, I want people here. I want people having a good time. But even if it was just the four of us, this is going to be a blast. In the back, like a caged lion rattling the cage, is my guy, Mike Petty. How are you?
Fantastic and amazing, liver lips. What's up there, beaver feet? How are you, Hucklebuck?
Now, we got so many people going on in the chat. I'm going to be flashing stuff up all night. We got lots to talk about, though. When I first reached out to you guys about this topic, I was not expecting that we were going to be talking about SGC. But, things happen. And, the other night, Mike, when we were recording, he had some thoughts about what he thought the future of SGC was, and it caught me off guard. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I think my head's exploding right now because I wasn't not expecting him to say what he said. And if you weren't there, you haven't seen that, let me quickly show you this. It's about an 80-second clip. Should SGC people, and we have a lot of friends in the hobby that are diehard SGC people. Let me ask the question differently. Fast forward 3 years from today.
SGC does not exist.
SGC, the brand is gone. What happens to SGC slabs 3 years from today? I've got cards in SGC slabs, and I have to cross them over for PSA and be reviewed, or do they automatically get a PSA grade because it's a collector's company?
I don't think people will do that. I don't think they'll care.
They'll leave them in the old SGC slab?
Some people will for sure, but by and large, there won't be this gigantic movement to cross stuff over. Just as I'm not crossing over old slabs, I'm not going to get the, hologram lighthouse label, right? I don't care. If it's in an old slab, it's in an old slab. Fine. If it gets cracked, whatever, that's a different story. But
what does that do to the value of SGC slabs if SGC is no longer a brand?
But does that take away from the service that they provided when they provided it?
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm asking
That's
what does
my
it
point.
do to the? Yeah. So you think it just stays the same?
Yeah.
All right, so there's a lot there, and I asked you guys your opinions on this, and you did not share. I don't think you guys shared what each other said. So I want to get right to the first question that I asked you guys in the most recent little questionnaire that I emailed you, and that's really what's the future of SGC. And when I say what's the future of SGC, the question is, will SGC, the brand, exist in 3 years? Because Mike said it won't. In fact, he said it before he even finished the question. Again, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he shouldn't have that opinion. It just surprised me. and a lot of people had opinions about it. So this is how you all responded. So let's take a look at what you guys said. Darren says no, it will not exist in 3 years. Mike Petty says no, it will not exist in 3
I
years.
said yes.
You said it. Well, you can change your opinion right now. I can fix this.
Yeah, can you
But
switch me over there?
Okay,
see
so
how good you are.
I will. So Petty,
Okay.
you're saying yes, it will exist in 3 years. Let me
Yeah,
get
I
this
thought
off the
that's what I
stage and
said.
fix it. All right,
Yeah.
Petty, why will it exist in 3 years?
Well, I just think that that it's been around already for what, about 18 months, a year and a year and a half, right? I just think that PSA told me the other day when I was there that their sports card demand, their submissions were down 16% year over year. There you go. Look at you see, Theo. That's how
Man,
you work the
you are
board.
a freaking beast.
Very nice. And I said, well, if you're grading, 1.3 million cards a month, what is it you're grading? And they said Pokemon. So if they're grading all those cards of Pokemon and their grading is down for sports cards, I would think that they wouldn't want to throw SGC right under the bus yet. As it is, they're already turning SGC into the shit brand that they are, with their service is bad like PSA. There's no accountability like PSA. I don't know. So that's why I do believe that I answered yes. I'm sorry that if that I must have hit the wrong button or what, but I do think they will. Though anything can happen, they'll reserve the right to shut that company down anytime and get you to flip all your SGC cards over to PSA if the shit hits the fan and they start getting down to having to lay off people. The economy says a lot, but there's other reasons. But that's the main reason I said they'll still exist in 3 years.
Now, people in the chat, tell me yes or no your opinion as well. I'm not just curious in these three guys. I'm curious what everyone else says. So, do you in the chat believe that SGC, the brand, will exist in 3 years? Yes or no? I will be flashing some of those on the screen. Darren said no, and Darren went into it a little bit in the conversation on Off Topic, where he basically said, yeah, I mean, in the professional world, I've seen acquisitions before, and this is how it goes. Mm-hmm. I mean, follow up on that a little bit for us, Darren.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I don't, I see everybody's comments and I agree. Like, it'd be great if it didn't go away, and I hope it doesn't go away. But I mean, they didn't buy SGC for the brand name, right? Because PSA already has the brand name, so they don't need that. PSA already has the biggest brand name. So they bought SGC for a reason. We don't know why they bought them. We could all assume different things. But to me, the primary reason that I'm saying that there's a chance it goes away is the guys that own collectors, they're not in it to make sure the guys collecting cards feel good about their cards. I mean, maybe to some extent, but that's not the primary goal, right? If you look at the board of directors of Collectors Universe, it consists of 6 people, 3 hedge fund guys, Stephen Cohen, the guy that owns the Mets, who, he's like the biggest money guy on Wall Street, right? Or one of, and then you've got Nat, and then you've got Nat's buddy that co-founded his last company with him, right? So even if Nat and Nat's buddy say, hey, I care a lot about collectors that are collecting, SGC, and I don't want to upset anybody, that's 2 of the 6, right? So the other 4, those guys don't do things. I take that back. They don't make investments in publicly or privately traded companies to help people out. They make investments in those companies to make money. Those guys all do things outside of that to help people. They all have foundations and they all donate a lot of money, and they buy the crappy team from New York, sorry, Mook, and try to make them better, which is nice. It's really nice. It's a nice thing. At the end of the day, right? Like, these guys don't put hundreds of millions of dollars into businesses. They don't reinvest in, fund acquisitions. so that people that collect sports cards feel good about the sports cards that they have long term. And I'm not saying they're right with that mindset. I'm just saying that that's the way that they're looking at it, right? They're not looking at it saying, oh, how can we make the vintage collecting hobby better? I don't think that that's what they're asking themselves in those board meetings.
You know, I
don't disagree with one thing that he said, to be honest.
He had
Go
me
ahead, Tony.
convinced the other day after watching y'all's thing, but then
Mhm.
I had to go back and think about, hey, what do I actually think? So that's, yeah.
So it sounds like Petty is now saying yes, they'll exist. Darren is saying no, and Tony, are you maybe kind of on the fence?
Oh no, I'm not on the fence at all. I think yes, it will exist. I mean, look, you can buy out a company, but there's still value in having that other brand. There just actually is. And so no, yeah, you can merge them together, but the crisis that's going to be caused inside of the hobby is going to be so much bad publicity for PSA. And, you know, those saying is any publicity is good publicity, but that's not necessarily the case. The biggest empire that we've known in human history was the Roman Empire. So I'm about to do one of these analogy things right now in Greg Miller's alley.
Do it. I love
the
it.
Roman Empire would go in and conquer and take over different cultures and lands, but they still allowed them to worship the way they wanted. They allowed them to have their own culture. They just took those taxes. So that is what I see collectors. They're conquering the hobby universe, but to go in and kill the culture would be such a backlash. It'd be catastrophic to their bottom line. That would hurt them worse than just allowing us to worship at the feet of SGC and have our black slabs. That's my opinion. So if I'm in that boardroom, I'm going to argue against it.
Okay.
I like it. I'd like to add to that if I could.
Of course.
What I've seen in business in the last 10 years in my particular industry that I'm in is a change from these private equity companies who used to come in and they would just, fire all the management right away. You'd have like half the company would be gutted and people would be fired, and that's what we usually see. And then a lot of times they go away. But what I've been seeing lately are these equity firms that are specialty firms, like specifically in the personal care industry that I'm in. You have Estee Lauder. They don't come in and buy Glam Glow and Bobbi Brown and Aveda and fold them. They keep them under their umbrella of beauty companies. L'Oreal, another one. They buy Lancome, they buy Maybelline, they buy Kiehl's, and they don't close them up. They have a niche for each one of those. This is what I've seen in the last 10 years. So I think that there's a chance. And nobody was more of a downer than me when that sale went through. I said right away, goodbye SGC. I'm not buying your shit anymore. And that kind. But I do look at it now a little bit differently. And then again, really, like Darren says, who knows because these guys, if you think they care about the hobby or care about you or me or anybody, you're right, Darren. They don't give a shit about the hobby. They care about one thing.
Don't.
The almighty dollar.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and that's kind of where I was going, right? Is there's a chance that they come back and say, we've done an analysis, right? And our analysis shows that, there's a high likelihood that the SGC brand could potentially grow our revenue base and not necessarily impede on our profit margin. And then they'll keep it, right? But if they look at it and say, okay, the way we do it at PSA is just more efficient, right? We can handle more cards. It takes us longer to do it, but obviously we have no issue because people keep sending us shit and it takes longer and longer. If they look at it that way, they could say, okay, well, why pay to market SGC separately, right? Why, every time they, and I mean, they could always say, look, we're now rebranding as Collectors, and Collectors has these, the Collectors booth, and then it'll have different brands there. But if they're not doing something like that, I just think that, unless there's something that SGC does or has that's driving profitability, they're likely get rid of it. And there's a lot of things that SGC does that's better than PSA, but it's better for us as collectors. It's not necessarily better
They're
for
losing
the
that
parent
edge,
company
though.
for
They are coming
revenue and
closer
profits.
to PSA right now
Yeah.
as being shipped.
Yeah, they're
as
making
opposed to where
SGC
they used to be.
shittier so that
Right.
people still submit to both.
Mhm.
And my thought is this: if they were going to buy SGC and they were going to invest in SGC to make SGC like equal the PSA for vintage or whatever, they would have done it by now, right?
Yeah.
It's been long. It's not like they need to like, it's not like the product that they provide or the service they provide is so hyper complex. It's going to take 5 years to integrate it with what they currently have, right? It's like, hey, you're going to grade cards. That could, it probably takes a few months to figure out the plan, and if maybe like 4 or 5 months to implement the plan. But we don't see all we've seen in the last year and a half is SGC becoming more PSA like when it
Yeah.
In
comes
every
to
way.
I don't
lead
doubt they're
times,
doing that.
etc. And all the
They're-
good stuff that SGC was doing prior to the acquisition is gone. They don't grade it shows anymore, right?
Mhm.
They're not as quick as they used to be, right? I mean, the only thing
No, they
really
have
they
them on
have
a
going
short
for them is they
leash.
have better
They
slabs.
probably cut their infrastructure,
Yeah.
to
Well,
be profitable.
here's my thought. So, to touch on what the chat said, when I asked the chat, do you think SGC will be around? 95% said yes, right? 95% of the chat said yes. But then when I asked the chat, who's your preferred brand? 95% said SGC, which kind of, I think, touches on what Darren is saying is not necessarily, I mean, listen, if you're an SGC person, you don't want SGC going under. So you're going to be optimistic that, yeah, they'll stick around because I want them to stick around. But that doesn't mean that they're going to stick around. So, like Darren's point the other day was, it's not about feelings. It's about their margin. It's about when you have the acquisition, you say what you think is going to happen, or do you just say what people want to hear at first and then do what you had planned? It's definitely not as simple as what we want to happen. And it's hard because whenever I do any video about grading, if I say anything negative about PSA, I get hammered by PSA people. If I say anything negative about SGC, I get hammered by SGC people. Not because they agree or disagree, but because they're defending their turf. They're defending their collection that they have a lot of money and emotion tied up into. So it's hard sometimes to separate it.
Us three guys here, us four guys actually, we have quite a bit of money tied up in it, and we're just going to tell it like it is, and let the chips fall where they may.
That's my point. If you're in charge of this company, you have to know how much emotion is tied up in this hobby. And if you go in and squash somebody and you get 30% of the hobby pissed at you, what's that doing for your bottom line, man? Oh, they'll get over it. Yeah,
no, I agree. If they just chop it, that's terrible. I would have to assume that they have some sort of a plan. If the end goal is to not have to manage two separate entities like that, would be to over time have like a really good, I could see them investing in something like that, like, a marketing company to help them come up with an integration plan so that, you get all this marketing over the next X number of years to say, look, this is where we're going. This is where you want to be. If you collect vintage, this is why you want to be a PSA, right? And they build it up so people will start to shift, right? I think if they're going to get rid of it, I agree with you. If they just chopped it, they'd be screwed. Now, I saw a couple of folks in the chat say if they get rid of SGC, somebody else will just come right in.
No,
the collectors is so big. If they could take out their number two like this, then if somebody else wants to come in, they'll squash them when they're so small that they won't have a chance to get going. If that's the goal.
You have Mike Baker authenticated right now.
There you go.
who's
Mike Baker grading.
In
Yeah.
bed with
how
Greg
many
Morris.
people are sending their cards to that guy?
Well, let me
So-
tell you something. He's a recycled guy in this industry. And before all three of you guys were ever here, there was a time that I felt that PSA could be on the ropes when they had the FBI investigating them. But
Let me give you a similar analogy or example. So, as a teacher, one of the things I used to do as an assignment is I would give my students like 10 search terms and I'd have them search them in 10 different search engines. And there were lots of different search engines. And about 2 years later, I went to reuse the same assignment, and you'd type in the name of that search engine and it'd take you to Google because Google bought them all out.
Yeah.
And they didn't keep Dogpile around, which was actually a search engine, or some of these others. They just bought them and it redirected you straight to Google.
Well, that's what collectors could do. They could buy Beckett. Beckett is on the ropes. They could buy Mike Baker. These guys are in it for the money. They're recycled scammers between Brent Mastro, the guy from PWCC. I mean, these guys do not have a very good history in the hobby. Yet people forget, and nobody gives a crap.
Tony,
You know?
Tony, answer Coach's question here. I think this is a great question. Must come from a good bloodline. My dad says the question is, why did they buy SGC then? Either to eliminate SGC or to stop them from doing all the things that make PSA look bad. Why? Tell me, why did PSA buy SG? I'm sorry. I know people have already left comments saying PSA didn't buy them. Why did collectors? Again, we have to understand 90% of collectors' revenue comes from PSA. So, you know, Toyota has other revenue sources too. But why did collectors buy SGC? Why did they buy them, Tony?
Because they were profitable. I mean, so if I'm collectors, am I going to go buy a bunch of Burger King franchises when you know nothing about burgers? No, I'm a cabinet guy. I might go buy another cabinet shop and then institute all of the stuff that I do to make me special and make me make enough money to support my family and be a profitable cabinet shop, because I know cabinets. They know that crap. So they bought somebody inside their universe that was already profitable, so they increased their profits.
But in 1 year, Tony,
Just-
in one
yeah.
year, didn't they undo all of their competitive advantages in the first year?
So there's different ways of looking at this. If I bought a cabinet shop, so just looking at it from me, I have an advantage over a lot of my competitors because of the way I do things. I've moved into the technology age, and we got stuff in there that cuts out parts and does stuff that a lot of shops don't have. If I bought a shop, the first thing I would do is try to do it how I do it. I would go in there. I might even put one of my managers in there, and we're going to change the way they do stuff. So for all I know, the reason SGC is slowed down is because they've changed the way they do things. And
Did they get neutered as Ziggy? We all know
maybe
Ziggy.
they did.
You see that minimum size shit on everything now.
Right. But
But
just
yet-
because they probably put their IT or all that, whatever, AI technology in there, and then who knows what's going on? They won't let us know. But just because they bought them doesn't mean they want to eliminate them and put them out of business and make them look like crap. That's stupid.
But it could be, but still, I agree it's stupid. I mean,
Pet-
I'm
Petty.
not saying coach is
Yeah.
stupid. I'm
No,
just
I know.
saying from a company.
Petty, did collectors buy SGC to neuter them?
I think so. I mean, that's apparently what they did. None of the slabs fit anymore. Before, the thing with SGC are their slabs looked good. The cards inside, everybody talks about eye appeal on the cards. What good is the F and eye appeal if it looks like shit in your piece of crap $5 holder from China with your plastic that's not even recyclable? I mean, you're buying an unsustainable plastic. They can't. First of all, they can't even be recycled. It's like third use. It's worthless, you know. And then you put it in a baggie that's hanging with an inch around it that you can see through. When before it was all cut nice and tight. You mean to tell me that these 3D printers can't do better? You saw that Babe Ruth card that Mike Junk Wax Hero had. He highlighted it. It was one of the things out there. Here you have a $300,000 to $500,000 baseball card, and it's in a goddamn PSA holder, and the thing's tilted like this, and you got it. It's not even for the right holder.
I want to go
And you
back
made a
to
good point, right? The guy that had that graded probably paid $5,000 or $10,000 for like a
Exactly.
3-cent piece of plastic, and they couldn't even make it fit.
And he was selling the card, obviously, but I'm sure somebody, if they're anal like me, they wouldn't have bid on it. Now I didn't have that kind of money.
Do
But
I
if
need to
had,
do
I
my
would've
buzzer?
No,
that
no,
was
this is.
that was almost a petty minute.
It was, man. That was awesome.
I want to go back to what I think Darren, I think, did a really, really good job of
He
explaining
did. He did a good
insight into the corporate America style of acquisitions. Let's take a minute and a half to rewatch what Darren said that day. I want to follow up with Darren, and then I want to hear you to counter that.
Going back to the last video that you showed, a couple companies that I've worked for in my career have acquired a ton of companies, and every single time we acquire a company, I've been, for the most part, lucky enough to be, engaged with those folks. And almost every time, from their senior leadership down to their individual contributors, when you first meet with them after the acquisition happens, they say every single time, without fail, we're going to keep doing things the way we've always done them. We're going to be independent. There aren't going to be any major changes. Basically, you guys acquired us because of the prestige of our brand, right? And then, 3 months later, 90% of the people that were there are gone. All their leadership's gone. And everything that made that company special or different has been morphed as part of the integration. And they are now fully aligned with, the parent company. So I've seen that happen over a dozen times with, company, obviously not in this industry, but companies in other industries. So I don't, it doesn't surprise me that he said that, because I hear that every time an acquisition happens. And then what we're seeing happen is what usually happens, right? People don't put the money out to do acquisitions that big just to keep the status quo, right? There's nobody's funding that, right? You have to get the funding to do deals like that. You have to be able to show some sort of a, significant benefit somewhere. And usually that comes from, some sort of an integration and making changes.
Of all the things that were said in that conversation, Darren's point right there, that 90 seconds, I got more texts about Darren freaking nailed it than anything. Although publicly, a lot of people said SGC this, SGC that. People were like, yeah, now I'm worried. I wasn't worried before Darren said that.
Well, we've been worried ever since it happened, I think. I mean, he's absolutely right. The nail right on the head.
But we've been worried, but for 6 months nothing changed, and then all of a sudden they stopped on-site grading, and then now all of a sudden, after a year, like almost to the day, they suddenly are slower, and people are saying, "Oh, it's because of the special." Maybe it is because of the special. We will find out here pretty quick if it's because of the special when we look at the gem rate data and see how many slabs they churned out this last month. Because if it's the same as it's always been, but it's taking twice as long, we'll know something. But Darren, I mean,
jobs have been axed.
I mean, here's my thing, right? And people are making good points in the chat about brands, right? Like, hey, Nabisco bought Kraft or whatever. Kraft bought Nabisco and they kept Oreo. Correct. I'm not arguing that, but here's my thing. At the end of the day, if all we care about is that the slabs look the same, but they're basically everything else that SGC people don't like about PSA, if everything goes to the processes and everything at PSA, yet they keep just the brand of SGC, how beneficial is that? Okay, our slabs match, but we don't complain about the complaints I'm hearing from people about PSA and the quality of everything and the lead times and everything else. To me, that's not like, hey, I don't like the color of the the flip, right? It's the brand. And if SGC basically becomes PSA with black slabs, that I have to imagine a great cost cutting measure would be to start using shittier quality slabs for SGC, as long as they kind of look the same. Then
they already
like Jeremy said, right? They'll go to PSA slabs with a black label instead of a red one, but everything else is the same. Then okay, cool. We might be able to say, hey, our slabs are somewhat similar, but at the end of the day, it's it still guts all the stuff that people that like SGC, or what the things about SGC that people like SGC, what the primary things they like about it, right? Like if it's all the same shit, but it's just a slab that matches, if that's what people are concerned about, is that the slabs don't match, that might not, I agree, that may or may not be a thing, right? They might keep the name on the slab, but if it's everything else is the same, then who cares, right? It's all the stuff people will be complaining about SGC in 3 years about, oh, they used to be so great and did this and did that. The quality of the grading went down, the lead times went up, right? The price went up, the quality of the slab went down. They just graded a Babe Ruth rookie card and the thing was crooked with a bag and looked like shit. And all of that could still happen, right? Because all that is integrating the processes that maximize profit, but not necessarily killing the brand. But that's fine. I mean, to me, I care about like the overall, not just what the slab looks like.
Darren,
I could crack all my cards out of the slabs and have all the same cards raw. I would enjoy them just as much, and I'm not looking to sell anything. So for me, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, if you're somebody I don't submit anything. I did a couple times to make videos when I first started because I saw that those got the most views. So that was kind of bush, but I did that like 2 years ago. But I don't submit anything. I don't buy raw stuff. So to me, it doesn't really matter. The process stuff. It does matter to me if the slabs go away and the brand goes away. I won't like that, right? I would say 2/3 of my best cards are in SGC slabs. So I don't want that to happen. I'm just saying if I'm a consumer of their services, I'm a consumer of their product. I buy it after somebody else paid to grade it usually. It doesn't bug me. If I'm a consumer of their service though, and I'm the one that submits, I don't want to say, hey, I'm getting the same shitty shit I get from PSA, but in a black slab.
Right.
So let me jump in real quick. First, we hit over 200 people in the chat. So appreciate all of you guys. Keep firing stuff in the chat. I'm stuck on this question from Dan because I think it's a great question for Darren. What about all of these major brewers? I mean, if you look at Budweiser, and you look at all the labels under their brand, all these craft labels, can't you look at SGC as sort of like a craft brewer like that?
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I'm not, I agree with Dan. He's 100% right. But that's the thing. Unless if somebody in the chat works at a craft brewer that worked for them prior to the acquisition by Anheuser-Busch, and then to see what changes were made to the product, to the marketing, to the logistics component of it, like how quickly can they get it out the door and get it shipped? I don't know how that plays out. I'm not I don't drink beer, but like, I don't know that space very well. That being said, I'm not, and that's my point. The brand might not go away, but you're going to get Budweiser quality for, I don't know, some more expensive beer price.
It may not, but it may.
It might. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm just guessing, right? I'm playing devil's advocate because I came up and Greg posted the thing with all the yes and no's, and I was the only one that said no. Now I got to defend my shitty position the best I possibly
It's not
can.
shitty. I mean, because it could happen any day, any day.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next question. Go ahead, Greg.
All right. So the high water mark I've seen is 208. The second question, 38 minutes in. This is fun. I'm having a blast. 38 minutes in, the question was how long until SGC goes away? Because when I asked this to Mike, he surprised me with what he said. I was not expecting you to say, Mike, that in 3 years that you didn't think SGC would exist. Let me ask you a different question. 2 years from today, does SGC exist?
What about 1 year?
No, we're getting there. We're working our way there. 2 years from today, does SGC exist?
No.
Okay. 1 year from today, does SGC exist?
Yes.
What's the time? What's the over-under? What's the Vegas over-under
18 months.
time from now and when they pull the ripcord in your crystal ball? 18?
So I'm thinking national 2026, maybe shortly after that.
surprised me as well. And again, it's not that he's wrong. None of us know. We'll find out. There are predictions that are made all the time, and then that time passes, and you go, wait a second, I thought this was supposed to have happened by then, and it didn't. But so my next question then was, how long until it goes away? And Darren said 18 months. We heard from Darren on Off Topic, and he's kind of reiterated some of that. But the next two of you we haven't heard from. So let's start here with Petty. Petty says when sports card submissions slip, they will fold the brand, creating a need to reholder all of the SGC slabs in existence, probably less than 5 years. Petty?
Could happen.
It could happen.
If the submissions go down, they will reserve the right to fold that shit. You'll have your universal registry. You'll have bring all your slabs in for $10. We'll crack them out and put them into PSA slabs, and we'll give you the same grades. You can't lose. And just think about how many cards are going to be flooding that place.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that's a great marketing strategy, right? If they think about, okay, if we buy SGC and then we take the say 70% of all SGC graded cards will come back through us for some nominal fee, right? And in the meantime, we'll get the revenue and profit off of them. They probably, I have to imagine SGC's margins aren't as good. So
it's like the record companies.
Yeah.
You had to buy the record, then you had to buy the CD, then you had to buy it again on with the
tape.
digital.
You had to buy
then
a
you gotta
record,
buy an
8-track tape, a cassette tape, then a CD, then you have to buy it again on iTunes.
Every card is potentially graded 5 times. Crack it, it comes back a 2. Crack it out, it becomes a 5. Shine it up a little, cut it on both sides, snip it a little on the corner, you got a 9. Then you send it in again, it gets a little bit more juice, it gets a 10. That's what's happening here, guys. Every card is being graded 10 times.
There are a lot of cards being regraded multiple times. Let's look at what Tony had to say. He says never. I mean, a man of few words. A man of few words, Tony. So never. So SGC is in it for the long haul. Is that right?
It's here till the day I die.
Oh, I hope you're right.
And
I hope you're right too.
So let me play devil's advocate with you for a second, Tony, because I think we all hope that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think all 4 of us do. I think most people in the chat, if not all people in the chat, hope that they're right. Then how do you explain? Okay, it's sort of like this. I got a new principal this year at work. Okay, I'm a teacher. I got a new principal. I kind of want to be on my A game because she doesn't know me yet. She doesn't know if I'm a very good teacher. She doesn't know if I'm lazy.
A permanent record, my friend.
She doesn't.
A lot of fires out.
I have put out multiple fires in garbage cans in the school bathrooms, but literally. But I'm going to be working my tail off for a minute to make sure that I've proven to her that I'm legit. We are at the 12-month mark. Is when all of a sudden things started to come down. Within 4 months, SGC was no longer grading on site. Okay. So this is the company that's never going away, and their parent company Collectors has just acquired them, and they've got to be on their A game because this is the new boss, right? They've immediately stopped doing on-site grading. Turnaround times change. Peter is literally Peter. If you were watching right now, I would invite you on. But
R.I.P. Peter, see you next year.
He's on a milk carton.
No longer needed.
So why would Peter go away? So Peter is the guy. Peter Steinberg is running SGC. Steinberg. Hold on a second, Petty. Right. Peter Steinberg is running SGC. He's now been his company's been acquired by a bigger company, but all of a sudden they stop grading on site, longer turnaround times, and he stops making public appearances, which were all of the things that made them special, but they're never going away. isn't that not the move? If you
Well,
are in
that's
charge of
exactly what
SGC,
the clip you played of mine is exactly that point, right? Hey, when he I remember when he made the announcement, he was sitting behind his desk and he had all the like the shelves and some of his baseball cards, and he was, kind of leaning forward, and SGC, the leader in vintage grading, was acquired by Collectors, the greatest company in the world. But don't worry, folks, nothing will change.
They can.
Remember
Let me
that
tell you
speech?
something about these.
Nothing will
takeovers.
change. It'll stay the same. We're a separate brand under the umbrella. The same
Hold on,
stuff I hear at
but
every
you know what
company
did change?
that I work for that gets acquired. None of that. A year end. None of that is the same. So that's
You
why
know
I'm
what
saying
did change, Joe?
it's
His
it's
bank
not,
account went.
yeah, 100%.
So
I
now
love that.
I don't
Good
he
for
doesn't
him.
give a
I would
crap,
love
man.
to be able to upgrade
He
all those
doesn't give
cards
a
he
crap,
has.
man.
wait, time out. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay. That was literally like an episode of the Muppets where they just start throwing animals up in the air and things are flying everywhere.
This whole thing is a petty minute.
This
was.
whole thing is
Tony
on
and I are
fire.
in violent agreement
Okay.
on this.
Okay. Tony and Darren agree that seems strange, that suddenly Peter disappeared. They're not doing on-site grading. Customer service seems to have gone away. Turnaround times dropped. So Petty, if they're going to be around for a while, like you said, yes, they're going to be around in 3 years.
Oh yeah.
How does
Bye-bye,
does
Peter.
Peter walk into that evaluation, that 1 year eval with Nat, and look
There
him in the
is
eye and
none.
say, "I'm killing it"?
There
He
is
doesn't
none.
care.
Look, what happened is when these guys make these acquisitions like this, Peter was he was like a little gnat on a grizzly bear, if you will. They probably gave him a 2-year contract. I doubt he had any points in that business. He was just a highly paid, young kid with a great future ahead of him that was running that company on the upward. Okay.
Mhm.
So they probably gave him a 2-year contract. And you know what happens, Darren, with 2-year contracts? Nice to see you after a year or 18
Yeah.
months. Pleasure to
Yeah.
meet you.
Those
He
are
knows that.
fantastic. I
He
know a
knows
lot
that.
of guys
Stupid.
that get those, and they're fantastic for those guys because they come in.
Absolutely.
It's like, hey, we guarantee your job for 2 years, and they're like, sweet. I'm
You
going to
haven't seen
fly
him. He could
around.
be
I'm going to
gone
go
for all
meet
we know.
with
He could already be
customers
gone.
and do whatever. They don't really have to work very hard. And if they say, you know what, you're not bringing any freaking value anymore, you're fired.
What
Okay,
value is
fine.
he bringing?
You still owe me 2
None.
years of pay. So I
Zero.
did 6 months of bullshit, and now you're going to pay me for 2 years.
They
I'm
paid him
so
for 2
sad,
years. And they probably
right? So
showed
that
him the
works
door
out
in a
great.
month. That's what my guess is. 1 month. He's probably been gone for already 6 months. That's
Yeah,
my opinion.
he's working for Mike Baker.
Rested. Bye, Peter. Good luck. We'll see
He's
you at
licking
Arena Club.
stickers.
Okay, let me ask you. Let me go around. Let me go around one at a time.
Oh,
Tony,
shit.
Yeah.
will in 1 year from today, Peter be working? So April 29th.
Absolutely not.
Wait. Okay, hold on. Will Peter be working for SGC on April 29th, 2026? Tony,
No.
Darren,
He's not working there now.
I was going to say, he's not there now.
Petty.
Do you have your buzzer ready?
I'm ready.
No fucking way.
Beep beep beep. All right. Next. Quick. This I think is going to wrap up this topic. I think. All right. Hold on a second. Next question. If SGC were to go away, what would happen to the values of the cards in their slabs? Okay, that was the next question. And Petty says goes down, but Darren and my buddy, the Southern Collector, says it stays the same. Petty, you're the odd man out. Why do they go down in value if they go away?
Because how did GAI's holders do? Any other company that's ever been cut like that, their stuff is like rattlesnake poison. And it's nobody wants it. It'll be like hot potato. I don't care how nice the card is. There will be a lot of bargains out there, and people will just be cracking and resubmitting, unless PSA gives them favorable deals to crack and resubmit, and cross over the grades. Because right now, you know damn well that nothing is crossing over. You lose 2 grades either way. If you cross over from SGC to PSA, PSA to SGC, you know, you might as well just have your head shaved, start a rock pile. It's just not happening. So I think they would go down and they'd be buying opportunities everywhere.
Tony, what about this point? Should we just stop grading cards? Or
No.
and
And
why
it doesn't
not?
say cards, it says CADs.
Well, you know what he means.
No, we should not stop grading cards, because I wouldn't buy a non-graded card in the price range I shop a lot of times. That's ridiculous, man. No way. Because I'm buying them online. Not going to happen. Now, if you just buy a bunch of common 1965 cards, cool. I don't need those graded. But if I'm buying a $10,000 card, there's no way I'm buying it raw.
Yeah, me too.
Ditto.
So I would say,
Darren, go ahead.
I don't disagree with what Mike said. I would make one point though. Most of the card companies that have gone out of business, whose slabs are kind of worthless, not worthless, but let's say 4 grades down from what a PSA or SGC sells for, a lot of times those those grading companies went out of business because they screwed something up, right? They got caught grading a lot of trimmed cards. They got caught grading a lot of modified cards that had added color or whatever, right? They were even involved in it, right? Like more so than just they accidentally, they were purposely, oh, this card looks okay, let me trim it. And I'm gonna, you know, the guy that is paying me $500 a grade is not going to pay me $2,000 because I'm going to trim it and give it a better grade, right? Like those card companies, the cards in those slabs are worth less because of the significant loss in reputation, let's say, of those brands. Now, if SGC just goes away because PSA is like, hey, we're making a corporate decision, I don't think it'll negatively impact it, because there was no reputational reason that it went away, right? It wasn't like, oh, SGC got caught, you know, with their hand in the cookie jar too many times, so now they're going out of business. They grade really well. They just are more expensive than, you know, our primary brand. So we're going to roll their label potentially into our process. So to me, I don't think it'll be as impactful, but yeah, it could have some. I just don't think, you know, their SGC's reputation is not bad. So I don't think it's going to be as impactful to the prices as some of those other ones.
That's a valid point.
Yeah. Mike Baker ran GAI.
Yep.
Yeah, heavily involved.
And at the end there, it's exactly what happened. There's questionable circumstances, the way it was run, because you try to save it. You're trying to save the company, and you do anything that you can, and you make, you know, bad decisions, and shit happens.
All right. So I guess the one last question I do have is this one. If SGC did go away, let's just use a hypothetical for a second. If they went away, who would SGC only collectors use? Where would they go? Because they're going to be pissed, right? That's you know, Nat isn't watching this. But if Nat was watching this, I hope the takeaway is, oh man, we would make a lot of collectors, longtime collectors with big collections, pretty upset if we did this. But because where would they go? And you guys said PSA, and then Petty says other. This is interesting to me because a lot of people would look at PSA as the reason that, you know, SGC got executed. So to then go to PSA, I don't know. That seems a little far-fetched to me, but why is it that you said PSA, Tony?
Because that's really the only one that's left. I mean, you ain't going to Beckett. I mean, they're on life support, and that Mike Baker, whatever the crap that is, to me, that's like a hobby place. I want a professional to slab my cards. So at that point, PSA is your only option. I mean, who else are you going to send it to?
I don't know.
You make a valid point there. I mean, that's probably where I would go. I'm not an SGC homer. I'm kind of a realist, and I think I have about 60% of my collection with PSA, 40% in SGC. And you have to look at that. Like, I mean, I'd hate to have all my eggs in one basket, I guess. But people, if you have it in all in PSA, I guess that's great, but who knows? That place could, you just never know what could happen. I think that the SGC people, they don't give a shit about them. There's not enough of them to make a mark on their balance sheet. So I think the ones that would stay around would probably try to find somewhere else. Guys like John at 3D, he loves SGC. Theo, funny, but that whole four collectors group, I guess, other than Dan, three of them, they love SGC. I don't see them jumping right over like Tony. We would. I
Yeah.
mean, I might even get if they offered that deal for $10, I probably would cross over all my stuff for free or for $10
Yeah. If
just to make it
SGC's
match.
gone.
Yeah, if they're
Yeah.
gone. If not,
I mean-
I enjoy it just the way it is. And I might even probably just enjoy it, or I just leave it. That's it. I could get so pissed off, I just leave it. But they don't care about us. We're not their target audience, I don't think.
Yeah, and the way things are going right now, anyways, getting cards graded by SGC over the next year, it's basically like being graded by PSA, anyways, just with cheaper, or the SGC ones will have, hopefully still for a little while, a little bit nicer slabs. And Adam made a good point that some of the most valuable cards in the vintage hobby have been graded by SGC. We know how collectors works. They've been doing it forever. Those guys that own those cards will walk their cards in and get a PSA. They'll cut a check. They'll get the thing graded in the PSA in the exact same grade, except for the 9.5 Mantle. That'll get a 9. With that one exception, they'll get the same exact grades, and those guys will not really care, right? So
that's right.
But outside of that, outside of like the 30 most valuable vintage cards ever graded by SGC, I think those guys, they'll absolutely welcome those guys in with open arms, because those are the guys that spend 6 figures a year grading cards with them, right?
And that's all they care about. And they'll do
and
anything. They've always done that. They've always had fans.
Yes.
You're very much, walked them right in.
Oh
Here you
yeah,
go.
I
Here's
know
your
guys
great
that have been
grades.
in the industry, like the guys used to work at Upper Deck when it first got started, down same area as the guys from PSA. They're all buddies, and they all tell me stories about the old Joe Orlando specials, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
they've been doing it since
even
the
Craig has
beginning
some
of time.
stories.
Oh yeah.
The coach did
Yeah.
that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
how do
yeah.
you think all these trim
Exactly.
cards got through? Peter, half the list on the PSA dealer list in 2020, half that list has been known to be in bed with card doctors, a whole team of them.
Mhm.
So there's hundreds of thousands of cards that have been doctored and trimmed that have been favorably graded by PSA, and now they just get transferred into another holder. That's all. I mean, look, like Orlando says about the wilt right there, how that just got walked right in for Lichtman, crossed it right over.
Yeah.
No other guy in the world would ever get that. You try to get a 7 to a 7 and see what happens. You're never going to get it.
Mhm.
You have a better chance of winning a game with your butt cheeks, playing a game of pickup sticks.
Yeah, no, totally. And yeah, so I don't think I honestly don't think that it's as impactful. Adam, I agree with you. The guy that owns a 9.5 Mantle would hate that it turned to a 9, but the guys that run that company, if they're like, hey, we're going to piss this guy off, he'll never grade with us again, but we're going to save tens of millions of dollars a year by making this more efficient, they don't care. They lost one big customer, but it's not as impactful.
It's not, as you know, it's a bell curve. These guys are going to fall off on the side. You're still going to retain, your stuff in the middle there. So that's right, Mackie. Butt cheek pickup sticks.
All right, let's move on. There's a couple of things that we had originally planned on talking about. Now that we're an hour in. And that was sort of the status of some things. And because I had asked a question about a week ago about what's overvalued, what's undervalued, what's what's appropriately valued. And so this was my first question, and I'll be honest with you, this one surprised me the most. Out of everybody's responses, this one surprised me the most. In the future, what will matter most for value? And you all said player. You all said player. When I see a card right now that is a PSA 10 of a second-tier Hall of Famer selling for crazy money, and that same set of a top-tier Hall of Famer in a 7 selling for regular money, I kind of thought some of you would say, oh no, the pristine high-grade stuff is always going to be sought after and very expensive. And then there's the whole scarcity thing. I was like, I mean, every time I turn around, I'm watching a video and someone goes, oh, this card is a pop 3. There's only 12 of these. The reason that this one is more, I mean, even Tony, you know, your video today, which was fantastic, you know, with Bleecker Street, you said you guys were talking about, oh, well, the pop of the 55 Jackie versus the pop graded.
It was a Jackie.
It was a Jackie?
That's the thing.
It's the player.
It's the player's most important.
Yeah.
You could say, so go back to what you said, Greg. 1957 tops, right? And you're like, oh, wow, there's some kind of unknown player in the 10. That's a really expensive card. If that was a Mickey Mantle, that would blow that one out of the water, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I would say players most important, and then the condition and scarcity, they're going to drive the price point for that player. I think each player has that range, and then the scarcity and condition of the card will say where in the range for that player it'll be. But the player is going to drive the range more so than any of the other two, right? Because
that's why set collectors are going away.
Yeah,
nobody wants the commons anymore. They don't want to waste their money on building a set and blowing all the money on 90% of the guys that really aren't the players. So the players are driving it.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the videos that I see is people will show their more recent pickup, and it'll be like, you know, they're buying rare cards, or not rare, you know, low pop, under 25 pop of guys that a lot of us have heard of, but they aren't like the superstar name. And it's interesting because it seems like right now I feel like I see more people moving toward older pre-war, less common cards than 1966 Mickey Mantles, you know, or 1963 Mickey Mantles. People are like, oh, this is a 39 play ball of, you know, whoever, like this guy who got into the Hall of Fame but isn't a household name. And so it's not that I'm disagreeing with you guys. I'm not disagreeing.
We all took this point here.
That's what I was surprised by.
I thought I was taking the ass's point, if I must be candid about it. As you know, an argument could be made about condition. I mean, look at the way these commons are right now, the 9s and the 10s of vintage commons. You know, they are off the charts right now, price wise, and they've gone up triple. But I just think that in the future, there's going to be no substitute. You know, you're never going to hear about 3/4 of these bums that they're all buying up today, you know, in the PSA 10 1/1s. That's scarce. That's high condition. That's dog shit. But Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson, Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Roberto Clemente, Ted Williams, these guys are all going to stand the test of time. And then you have something in the highest condition possible. You have something that's scarce. Yeah, that's all going to drive it. But for me, the future, I don't know. My future is much shorter than your guys' future.
Can I give an example? Can I give an example of that? So at Strongsville, I bought 2 cards from the same set, right?
Yeah.
Player drove it, right?
Bond
I got
red.
a absolutely fantastic deal on my Bond Red Jackie Robinson because the guy that sold it to me is a sweetheart.
He is a sweetheart.
Very kind
what
man.
A dope. He gave that away, that guy.
But that card in an authentic still was twice as expensive as a Joe DiMaggio in a 6 from the same set, because Jackie Robinson, as the player, is more collectible than Joe DiMaggio. So the condition was considerably higher from a grading number perspective, right? And scarcity wise, they're probably pretty similar, I would assume. I mean, at the time, Joe DiMaggio was a pretty big name. I have to imagine they stuck some cards in there, and Jackie Robinson was a huge name because he had just broken the color barrier when the set came out. So I have to imagine that they put a fairly even amount of those cards in. So scarcity, I don't know the exact pops of both. I should check, but
The
let's say
minimum
scarcity
size met
close.
is a new thing on those cards, too. Like they've been grading those all minimum size met now. That DiMaggio must have been graded, a while back. If you look at the cert, possibly it was reholdered from like 2015 or whatever. And I think at some point they may be graded again, but who knows?
Well, one of the reasons those were all weird cuts, I mean, they were to go into bread, and the corners were cut weird. In fact, there's even a bunch of them where they only cut 3 of the corners. Like there's a bunch of them where one of the corners is still intact, and that was just so it didn't snag when they slid it in there. But we're talking about bread cards that were very crudely cut.
There's a 50
75 years ago.
Net 54.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So if I look at those 3 topics, I say just based on my most recent purchase, the player by far drove the value of the card.
I
and
bought
then
only 2 cards.
And scarcity were like distant seconds.
I only bought 2, Wagner and Cobb. Greg, what about you?
Well, I'm sorry. I was looking at the comments.
No, I said I only bought 2 cards in Strongville, Wagner and a Cobb.
I didn't buy a Wagner or a Cobb.
No, but you bought Christy Mathewson. You bought Koufax. You didn't.
Carl Hubble.
You bought the players.
I bought a Hubble, a Koufax, and a Mathewson. You're right.
Okay. You bought players. Tony?
Again, I'm not disagreeing with you guys. I just was surprised you all agreed on it.
Me too.
I mean, we can't agree on anything.
Our last live, we were talking about burritos and players. We never talked about, hey, let's talk about, what the grade
values and what's going to happen in the future. Who the hell knows?
Well, that's what makes it fun.
I know.
I guess.
Here's a question that was interesting. This was a little bit of a polarizing one. Pre-war cards are currently, and how did you say it? Darren said somewhat overvalued. Petty said very undervalued. All right, let's start with Darren. Why are they somewhat overvalued, pre-war cards, Darren?
So when I answer these questions that you asked, by the way, I look at them through the lens of what I'm buying, not of like the hobby as a whole. And going back to the last question, I've been primarily purchasing iconic players, right? So when I go to pre-war cards, there's certain cards that I was looking at 2-3 years ago that have like tripled in price, right? Like the E95 Cobb that Orlando picked up at Strongsville. I was looking at one of those a couple of years ago. That card in like a 3, it seems like it's almost doubled in price in the last couple of years, right? My that red Grange football card I bought, I started looking at that a couple of years ago, and they've doubled in price since then. I think, there's a few Honus Wagners that I was looking at that have gone up a ton. So from my perspective, the pre-war cards of the players that I would like to collect, I think have gone up in value so much so quickly. It's hard for me to say that they're not overvalued to an extent, but I could be wrong, right? Like, I could buy a shoeless Joe Jackson 1914 Cracker Jack in a 1.5 for 150 grand and say, hey, that was an undervalued card, right? It just depends on, it depends on the outlook, right? It's, for me, anything that goes up in value very, very, very quickly, goes up a lot very, very, very quickly, typically is the more likely one to have a little bit of a rebound versus something that goes up steadily. Typically, I think could hold the value longer. So a lot of the cards I'm looking at have gone up so quickly by a lot that, I in my, from my perspective, I would say the pre-war cards I'm looking at are somewhat overvalued.
I think is maybe Dan's point an example, Darren, of Cracker Jack cards have gone up so much. They've like doubled in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly. That's where I'm going, right? They might keep going up. And if that's the case, then they're undervalued, right? But they might not go up as quickly, or they could come back down, not all the way, but they could drop a chunk fairly quickly because they went up so fast. And that's why I'm saying overvalued. And yes, petty has caused pre-war to go up. Actually,
I have everybody.
he's driving prices.
Hey, when you have more people involved in the bidding and you have more people interested, you have more people in the hobby, eventually they're going to find their way, like I did, up. If they continue in this hobby, they're going to find their way upwards, just like they did with the Mona Lisa. They find the way upwards to that. And that's where I think it is a pre-war bubble, and it very well could be overvalued too. I mean, I've said that before.
But what if Cracker Jacks were undervalued for so long that right now they're making up for it? I think that's the case. And you know what? In 1990, if you go get a Beckett price guide from 1990 and you look at what a 52 Mantle cost back then, people were saying $1,500 for a Mantle. Are you crazy? If you bought that, then you were a freaking genius, man. If you still have it, I mean.
Okay, let me interject this thought, and this is why I think I kind of agree with Tony on this one. Is we're in this era right now where it's all about eye appeal, right? It's about eye appeal of the card. Well, part of that is how attractive the card itself is. Not how rare the card itself is, but how attractive the card itself is. Yeah. I think part of the eye appeal thing is the fact that the card, like the 52 tops, are beautiful. They've always been beautiful, but there are other sets, and I don't want to start throwing stones, but there are other sets that aren't that good looking, but there are some expensive cards in them. I think part of the Cracker Jack thing is they're gorgeous.
They're beautiful.
And if you're looking for eye appeal and you're looking at cards you like to look at, you want to look at a beautiful card. And I think people finally said, maybe they're not as rare as this other set. They're not common. Maybe they're not as rare as this other set, but they're way the heck prettier to look at.
They're so pretty that's the only set people are buying commons of and spending big money just to say, I got a Cracker Jack, because they're that daggum awesome. And why people didn't say that 5 years ago.
That was a good one.
I don't know. I'm just having a blast talking with you guys. I could care less about the rest of it.
Hey, 221.
Let's let Darren respond, because he just got attacked. Darren, go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna give another example, right? The Honus Wagner, the fucking rebuilt one that was, it was like ripped, and then the guy's like, some artist drew a piece and they glued it in, and then they pressed it and the glue disappeared, whatever that shit was. That just sold for $2 million, right? Like we all I think all four of us held that card in our hand at Strongsville. And I think all of us said, I would never buy this card, right? But somebody who's like, hey, I heard a Honus Wagner card they've been going up like crazy and I'm rich, so I'm going to buy one and it's going to go up even more. And that's the thing. It's Warren Buffett's thing, right? If you're buying something with the assumption it's going to go up in value, but you don't understand why, you just heard that it could, it's not a good move, because that's when stuff starts to come back down.
Yeah, and Alice is ripping on us because we're saying Honus instead of Honus.
Hey,
I get it. It's Honus, but
it's always been Honus to me, and it's
always been Honus.
It hasn't been
literally.
Honus. It's been Honus. Bonus. Honus. That's the guy.
Honest corners for honest.
Honest
Honus for $2 million.
All right, this one is an interesting one. By the way, the high water mark tonight is 223 people in the chat. We are currently at 219. I believe that might be an all-time high for MidLife Live. So everybody out there, you guys are awesome.
Thanks,
I appreciate you, especially after having to put up with us for an hour and 15 minutes. So
don't forget to tell your friends.
It genuinely means a lot that you all are out here. Now, here's this next question. Mickey Mantle cards are now. Talk about polarizing.
You know,
Check out this comment. Oh, Darren says Mickey Mantle cards are very overvalued. Tony again, right down the middle. Tennessee Tony, right down the middle. We got the outliers in Petty and in Darren. Darren, why are they very overvalued?
I mean, I don't know. Let me rephrase that. To me, they're overvalued. I'm not buying mantles because, you know, to me, there are other cards that are more interesting at those price points. And most mantle cards, obviously, like the early food ones and stuff are rare, but most mantle cards, most of his like Topps and Bowman cards aren't rare. And Mantle he was a cool guy. He was a great baseball player, but you know, I wouldn't put Mantle in the top 10 best baseball players of all time and paying a huge premium for his card because he was really cool. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong, but for me, for my collecting, I wouldn't buy Mantle cards right now because they're a lot of money. And I know that Tony and Petty are going to say they've always been like that, and they just keep going. They just keep going up, and that's fine. But to me, like I don't know, like I'm not a Mantle collector. My wife's a collector.
But here's the deal. Wait a second. What you guys just said a second ago. Is it's all about the player, and to this point right here. If it's all about the player and Mantle's the player, how are they over? I mean, how does that jive with this? How does that?
I mean, because
sure,
yeah, because the player, his prices are really high. That goes exactly back to the point, right? What drives price? The player's most important. In this case, Mantle's the most collected player in the hobby, so his cards are the most expensive because of that, and it's purely because of the player. Oh, Dan
is continuing to beat this one. He's just twisting the knife.
I think that he's definitely undervalued. The more people that realize it, they always want Mickey Mantle. He captured the imagination. He was 1950s, the golden age of baseball. And who can ever forget batting third, number 7, Mickey Mantle. Number 7.
I gotta say, listening to Bob Shepard live, that was a thrill. Being able to be in Yankee Stadium and hear that, and how cool is it that Jeter recorded that? So even after he died, he still had that introduction. That's pretty cool.
I mean, it was just cool. You know, he was a special player, a special time. The 52 Mantle will forever be his rookie card. I don't care what anybody says. It's the Topps rookie card. It's the card that changed everything. That started everything that we're doing today, in my humble opinion. So,
yep.
All right. Well, here's another one. There's been this kick on pre-war. It's like that's suddenly the hot thing. And it feels like everybody's been abandoning 50s and 60s stuff. And when I do my once a month videos where I look at what's selling for under $50, I'm like, holy smokes, I can't believe that card is selling for $45 when it didn't used to be that way. And it feels like a lot of people, to me, have been selling off their 50s and 60s cards because they're going to pre-war stuff. So what does that mean is happening to 50s and 60s stuff? So here, we got Tony saying somewhat undervalued 50s and 60s, Petty somewhat undervalued, Darren somewhat overvalued. We haven't heard from Tony in a minute. Tony, why are 50s and 60s cards somewhat undervalued?
Well, I mean, those are great all-time players, and for some reason, when you do your monthly pickups, I mean, it's ridiculous what those cards are going for. But then again, Petty and I were talking about the other day, man, there are so many of those out there. I mean, it ain't junk wax, but there's a ton of them. I mean, if I wanted to go to the show and find a bunch of Hank Aaron's at Strongsville, I could have found as many as I wanted in any year. I mean, obviously it's not unlimited. So on that way, if you're talking, here we go about the scarcity quotient, they're just not scarce. So I don't know. But they should be more valuable than they are. I guess that's basically where I was coming from.
And I think they are valuable already. I mean, they've doubled in price in the last 5 years, despite the huge spike. Yeah, they've come down or they're on a roller coaster a little, but I mean, look at the modern cards have just the bottom is fell out of that, and a lot of them.
Yeah,
And so
but
nice cards are still a premium, and there's never been a better time to build a burrito with your 50s and 60s Hall of Famers.
yeah, because they're cheap.
They're because you can get them on the cheap for a nice
That's what I'm
four that
saying.
looks.
They're undervalued.
If I was starting now, I wouldn't be buying 6s and 7s and 8s. I'd be buying 4s that look like 6s, and
Yeah,
I'd take my
I agree.
time. If I was a young kid getting into the hobby, that's what I would do.
Now, Darren, did you have anything you wanted to say there before I hop on to the next thing, which I think is interesting?
Yeah, sure. So I'll make a point that I think Dan will agree with. The greatest effing card in the 1960s is the Nolan Ryan Jerry Koosman rookie card, and that card is pretty expensive. So
Yeah.
I will say 60s cards, again, aligning with the stuff I collect. I don't collect a lot of stuff from the 60s. I do collect stuff from the 50s, not so much in the 60s, but that card for sure. And it's a little pricey. So the 60s might be a little overvalued, but being one of the greatest pitchers of all time, pitching 100 miles an hour in his 40s, right? Like Nolan Ryan was still pitching when he was older than I am now, right? And if I threw a baseball right now more than like 30 miles an hour, I'd be going to the hospital, right? So that being said, I'll say 60s are slightly overvalued based on me.
And I love the Nolan Ryan rookie card.
I got that one too, Lou. I got the Seaver. So from the 60s, I think the only 60s cards I have that I care about, I got, oh boy. Lou,
right.
If
you're listening and not watching, Lou just said Ryan is overrated, and Darren just his stomach just turned.
He might be overrated, just like Mantle, but his cards
It doesn't
are
matter.
money, and he has captured the imagination of an entire generation, more the same way Ken Griffey Jr. has and Mantle before him, to the point where I think a lot of guys would want to name their sons Ryan. Back
Nolan.
Nolan.
Or Nolan or Ryan.
me.
Yeah, either one.
I'm a living testimony. I'll tell you what's underrated and undervalued at the same time. Pinhole cards.
Right.
Yeah,
Pinhole
it's hard to
cards.
argue.
I agree with that.
Find.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at this. This I thought was super interesting. I opened it up completely and said, "What's the most undervalued category?" And Darren went first and said, "Second-tier Hall of Famers." Why are second-tier Hall of Famers undervalued, Darren?
Because if you look at top-tier Hall of Famers, their cards are really expensive, and it's like, let's go rookie cards. It's easier to do comparisons, right? You look at rookie cards or like the rarest. Some guys had cards that are more valuable, like Mantle, right? That's rookie cards, not as most valuable card. You look at the top tier Hall of Famers, and they're like one or two most valuable cards. They're very, very expensive. If you look at second tier Hall of Famers rookie cards, they're cheap as hell, right? Like a Joe Morgan rookie card's like $30. So to me,
rookie cards are overrated.
Oh.
Well,
especially
we'll
the
talk.
ones with multiple players on them.
You might be foreshadowing a little bit. So,
Oh, really?
Petty says the most undervalued category are signed photos. Petty, expand.
Players touched them. They touched the photos when they signed them, and they were big and long, and they were beautiful. The penmanship right on the sweet spot.
I might have to isolate part of that clip.
Imitation is the biggest.
Somebody said
form of
pirate cards are underrated.
Oh. Next, we got my guy Tony says on-card vintage autographs. Now that's a shocker.
I'm staying true to my brand.
You are, and it has been for a while. I think they're priced high for what you get.
All right. Anything else on why? Do you need to expand one more time on that, Tony, or are you good with leaving it there?
I think there's more growth in that than any aspect of the hobby, because as the younger people gravitate to vintage and they've opened all these cards with autographs on them, that is what they're going to think is sexy, man. If you can get a card with an autograph and it's built-in population control, all those things. So yeah, it's a.
Can you think they'll be able to read the cursive writing though of
Shut
those
up.
old players?
I
I think they're nice.
Well, you're right.
I agree 100%.
I thought you were
with
about
that
to dog
statement.
me.
No, but no, I wasn't. I was
No,
gonna
the
agree.
vintage players have nice autographs.
And the Three Stooges cards are way underrated.
Yeah,
And
they
you
are.
try to find those signed. Mo Howard, Curly Howard, Larry Fine.
Yeah.
All right. How about overvalued? Our very last category of questions for the night is, what is the most overvalued? Now, Petty touched on it a second ago. Darren said the most iconic cards are those rookie cards. I don't know. What do you mean, Darren? Most overvalued iconic cards.
The most iconic cards, right? So Honus Wagner T206, a 52 tops Mickey Mantle, right? Jackie Robinson Leaf, right? The just super iconic cards. They're just but that's the thing for me. They're always going to be overvalued because the demand is so high for them because of the fact that they're so iconic that everybody wants to buy them. So people pay more money for them because it has just really high demand. So for me, if a card is really expensive purely on if it's a demand side driven price, to me that's that I lean towards overvalued. If it's a supply side driven price, like the supply is really low, I wouldn't necessarily say something's overvalued. So the most iconic cards are overvalued because of the demand for the most part, and that's why I would say that they're overvalued compared to other cards from the same sets or from the same players.
All right. Petty says, signed cards that you can't see or read, millions of faked autos authenticated by PSA. I think we have our next odd couple topic / you guys might need to see couples counseling. But Petty, you want to expand on this?
I actually just did that to crack Tony's eggs. I just wanted to see what he said. But that is a rising category. He does make a great point about the kids. Like I said, they'll have to learn how to read the cursive because they're just used to a scribble now. But they could go up.
Hey, and once they're slabbed, they're real. Don't forget that.
That's true. And not overvalued, though, I will say, in all honesty, I think it's rookie cards with our dual player. Other than your Ryan, your bench, and I really can't think of any other one. Those are two classics from '68 for some reason. But
Seaver
like
in '67.
Yeah, but that's a high number. That's going to
True.
cost you. So, you really have to like Seaver or collect the 67 set. That's just a card, even though I love Seaver, I've never bought it because I prefer the 68, 69, 70, 71. And Rose. His card was always a little too expensive for what it was, and it continued to go up. I don't need a little keyhole picture of Pete Rose on a 63 card for $2,000.
Right. All right. And Tony says modern numbered cards.
Oh,
No doubt.
That's a better
That's a
answer. I was thinking
no-brainer.
from a vintage perspective. My bad.
Yeah.
Tony, you're a man of Tony's licking his wounds over there. You
You're
good?
gonna be in trouble after that answer. Your whole
I'm just
Instagram.
saying. Everybody's dogging out my vintage signed card.
You're right. Let me tell you something. Like I said, you are 100% right with your assessment on that, and that's my true feelings. It's just got already out of hand for me to start today and say, oh no, I'm gonna love on card autos at $15,000 a card. It's just not in my future of autographs that I can't read.
I mean, yeah, but going to the modern numbered, I don't have to. All the guys in here are vintage. They kind of agree with me. But man, that bubble's going to burst at some point, and I just don't want to be holding the cards when it does, because there's no way that
I just hope they
the
really
amount of
love
money
their
they're
cards.
spending.
I hope they love their Schmear Sanders and this other guy Jackson Dart and Jackson this and this crazy name that.
Yeah.
because they're just going to get, it's just been happening year after year after year, so
Yeah.
it's going to continue, and more power to them if they hit a homer. Great for them.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have one more question. I'll zip through this quickly. How far
Did
above
we answer
comps will?
this?
No, you did. Darren says, "How far above comps will you pay?" Darren starts with a lot. A lot. I'm okay setting my budget irrespective of recent comp price. I'll overpay to get a card I want if it has good eye appeal.
So true.
What example comes to mind on a time you overpaid but you're okay with it, Darren?
My green T206 Cobb.
I knew you were going to say that.
I set the price for the grade by 25%, and I don't care because I love it and I look at it all the time, and I'm happy with it. And I would rather have overpaid for that than got a better deal on one that I don't like as much.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And that's, if anybody that's seen that card with a nice scan will, can appreciate that, because that green you don't see every day, and that's what jumped at you. The centering, the green, the no creases, everything that card has in spades. So
Patty says he'll go over 10 to 15%. So you did answer it. Yeah, you did. I
can't even remember what I said on these.
You said the same thing, basically,
Okay.
10 to 15%.
There's Tony's my comp guy.
And all the way at the end, it comes full circle, and they come back together. The two odd couple guys. I mean, ultimately, there you go. I'm getting beat up for my my cheap headset.
I love your headset. You sound great.
You guys have to keep something in mind. My total investment on everything for my channel is like $15. So
now that you're a big time podcaster, why don't you get one of those fancy mics that
big
goes
time
across the table?
You got to get a boom mic.
I've thought about doing that.
I wouldn't know
Like
how to hook
this
it
thing?
up. That's my problem.
Look
Yeah,
at
there you
Darren
go.
over there.
I don't even have it plugged in. I think I tried to use it once and it didn't work, so I just have it sitting on my desk. The paperwork.
You should keep it there. It looks really good. You look important.
Yeah.
There you go.
Who was that dude on CNN for years that had that show? Larry King Live.
Yeah.
Larry King.
Well, we'll pass the hat at the National and whatever we come up with. There you go.
Tony, buy your buddy a new headset.
Man, I will. I'm going to autograph it though.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, you send me that headset. You don't use it. Send that over.
It made
Put
my
a
head
little-
too hot.
Yeah, I know. I get that too.
Oh, guys.
Man, I'm getting hammered tonight. Jeez.
How's this?
It's good. So my last thing for tonight. Questions from the chat. We're at 217 people in the chat. The reason I'm louder is because I have teacher voice and I get fired up and I get excited. If you guys counted how many times my wife said, "Okay, honey, just bring it down a little bit," you guys would understand that I just get fired up because I get excited. What do you guys have? We'll go a few more minutes. Anything in the chat that anybody wants to bring up, I will throw it on the screen and we'll go around the horn with it. Again, appreciate all of you. 217 people still here. I know I've said this is the last question a lot of times. You're right, Lou, but it is what I it is just how I'm wired. I can't give it up. I don't want to stop talking because this is too much fun. I guess my takeaway is I feel like you guys all maybe waffled slightly on your opinions on the SGC thing. I felt like nobody was strong one way or the other. So I guess
about Peter.
We were all strong about Peter that we think he's going to be gone sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. I guess after the whole discussion, where do you stand right now, Petty? What is the future of SGC right now after hearing these other guys in the chat and everybody's opinions? Has it changed at all?
He's on to something. He must know they'll be closed by next fall.
Oh, so that's a movement for Petty. Darren, has your opinion changed at all with this?
No, I base my opinion on what I've seen, and I do appreciate everyone in the chat's feedback, especially the people that told me I'm wrong. But you know, people tell me I'm wrong sometimes, and we'll see how it plays out.
And what about you, Tony?
They're never shutting down. Never. They're going to be like Stonehenge.
They're never.
Petty.
Basically, in like 2
anywhere.
years, Tony or I have to buy the other one of Pappy Van Winkle here. One of
There's
us has got to be right.
Oh,
One of us has to be right.
I
I'm
know
saying
that
they're
I
gone. You're
respect-
saying
I
they're
know
not.
that
So
I
one of us has to
respect-
be right.
All
I
right, 2 years
respect all
at the
your
Nationals.
opinions, that's for
Mhm.
sure.
Bet a drink on it.
There we go.
All right, Petty. What do you think about this one?
Very
What
simple.
is the definition of honest corners?
Well, if the card looks like a 4, you shouldn't be able to poke your eye out with it, with the corners. Those are dishonest corners.
Yes.
A 3 or a 4, they should have a little slight, a feathering, like a little corner that kind of has slivers of cardboard on it. It should have a nice roundness to it, honestly. So for the grade, that's what it implies. A 3 or a 2. Like, look at this 2 I got. It looks like a 7. Those are dishonest corners. Honest corners. Anyway, you can figure it out. It's if a 2 looks like a 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the borders are wide.
And they
It's-
should be. They need to
Yeah.
be wide.
Yeah.
Coach turned 75 when we were in Strongsville. Is 75 too old to start a cabinet business, Tony?
It is not, Coach.
I
You
like
just
that
have
answer.
to surround yourself with good people.
like that
Isn't that
answer.
the truth? Isn't that the truth?
All right. PSA has gone in 3 years. Oh, geez.
Hey,
We have gone off the
if
rails.
If this statement, like I said, Dan knows, if this statement was made in 2020, you might have been saying the same thing before the kaboom hit, before all the kaboomies hit and the pandemic, because they were on the ropes there. They were under investigation by the FBI, as I've mentioned, and they were known to, slide this way, slide that way. I said, you never do know with any of these companies. If they're here today, gone tomorrow, we'll just have to do what, Tony? We'll have to do the pivot.
We'll pivot.
You just pivot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Either I might just pivot right out of the hobby. You might just pivot right down into the signed cards.
I
When there's
mean,
an autograph,
pivoting.
the next autograph scandal.
Yeah.
Find out all those autographs have been printed.
Yeah.
To answer this one, will I own a mantle in my future? Someday I'll own mantles, but the hard thing I have right now is mantles are not rare. I can go buy any mantle, 51, 52, 53, 54. You could buy, 54 bummer. You could buy a mantle anytime. I can go on eBay right now and they're there. So I don't feel like why spend money right now on a card that isn't hard to find. So a lot of what drives my purchases is what's right in front of me if I'm at a show. If it's like the Koufax, a Koufax isn't rare either, but that one was gorgeous. It was right in front of me. And I'm like, I've been wanting one. That seems like a good deal for one that looks like that. So that's what will happen with a mantle. Is I'll be at a show.
Went down 40% though, would you look for a mantle if his prices were down 40%, or would you try to snag something, one of your favorite ones, like I don't know, it's a 58, or what's your favorite?
Yeah, I like
one?
the 58 and 56 a lot. I might, I might. If Mantle plummeted for some reason, I might target Mantle. Yeah.
See,
Maybe.
there you go. Maybe you
Well,
never know.
I mean, I feel the same way. That's why, in order to buy those nice cards I did in Strongsville, one of the moves I made, I sold all of my 1960 mantles, because I know if I ever want them back, I can go on eBay and get them back in a month.
And you'll do a better job. Not that, I mean,
Yeah.
you had several that were really beautiful, obviously, but I mean,
Yeah.
you'll do a better job next time.
Yeah. I had a curated stuff. What kind of drives me now is the scarcity stuff. I mean, but it has to be a player I know. But
Yeah, I mean, you guys are right. Griffies aren't rare, but they're such high demand, and you're right. Most base cards aren't rare. I agree. And if you look at what I've been buying, I'm buying pirate cards. So it doesn't, I mean, I don't know. I just get on these little, twists and turns for me. And I don't know what I'm going to buy next. I know what I wanted to buy at Strongsville, and some of it I did, and some of it I didn't. So
It's just a hobby. Buy what you don't like, because then when you do start to like it, it's going to cost you triple.
yeah. All right. Here's another one. Is the coming recession going to bring back pre-COVID prices?
I don't think there is a coming recession myself. If you're in Nashville, Tennessee right now in the cabinet business, you can't keep up. There's so much work. So I maybe in some parts of the country, but not where I live.
How about you, Darren?
Yeah. What do you think, Darren?
No, I mean, I don't think that. I don't think so. I mean, it could have some impact, or if put it this way, if there's a recession, I think it will have some impact. I don't think that the recession will be bad enough to drive prices back to pre-COVID. And the reason I say that is a lot of the bigger cards that have sold, or recessions hit different people different ways. The guys that buy those really big cards, a recession just impacts, it literally doesn't impact their spending whatsoever. So I think it just depends on what you're collecting. But for me, like iconic cards, I think that, I think that the prices might come down a little bit, but I don't think they're going to drop all the way back to pre-COVID. I don't think we're going to get back to pre-COVID. I don't think we'll ever get back to pre-COVID. And if we do, it's because like we're in like a depression, which I don't think we're going in that direction.
What about this one? You three, real quick. I think this is going to be quick. Any of you collect modern cards of Hall of Famers?
I love the Ted Williams ball, and that is an actual real autograph. You see, he touched that, Tony, that ball there.
He sure did.
He touched that ball.
Yeah.
I like it when they touch my balls.
Oh boy, here we go.
But anyway, that is authentic. I will opine. So I'm a no.
Okay, Darren.
I mean, Nolan Ryan, I guess, would be a modern Hall of Famer. So I collect him, and Judge is obviously a future Hall of Famer, so I collect him. But other than that, not really.
Ryan is modern.
Is he a modern Hall of Famer? I don't know. What's modern? He got in the Hall of Fame after I was born, so that's modern, right?
Adley Rushman and all these new kids on the block.
Well, those guys aren't Hall of Famers, though.
Oh,
I guess it depends on what a modern Hall of Famer is. Like,
yeah, I don't know what that definition is.
All right, let's move to this one then. Do you think second and third tier Hall of Famers have a chance of being collected and not forgotten? I think this goes all the way back to MidLife Live 1, where we talked about who's going to be hobby relevant, right? And
yeah,
who's not.
They'll still be collected, and they won't be forgotten. As long as you're a Hall of Famer, you're going to be collected. Now, the question is what's the value going to be? Because people still do. That's one of the runs people do is the Hall of Fame run, whether it's their rookie cards or it's all the Hall of Famers in a given year. People like runs. And so Hall of Famers, they're always going to be there. That's my opinion.
I agree.
All right, let's wrap it up with this last question. Our buddy Matt from the Card Story, who we got to spend some time with actually recently at Strongsville. How many quarters required for a recession? Orwellian new think changed the definition a few years. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think we're in a situation right now, and obviously there's a lot going on with politics, but I think Tony kind of nails it. Where I am right now in California, they just released our new contract that our union agreed to, where we're getting a whopping -1% raise next year, and they want us to vote yes on it. So that doesn't line up with Tony's situation, where Tennessee is doing well. It's not going as well where I'm at. I think that we're going to have regional stuff for sure, and I know there are other areas that are struggling, and other areas are doing. I don't know.
And for me, your women, your wives and your girlfriends, they're still putting concoctions on their face. They're still putting creams, and they don't want to wrinkle, and they're still putting shit in their hair and spritz all over their body, cosmetic. That stuff's not going away. They will use something else, even if it smells like a skunk and makes them break out. They're going to use something. So I don't see that jumping in a recession. Who's that?
We're good.
I don't. To his specific question, it depends. I would say 2 to 3 quarters of negative GDP growth. I would call that a recession. But I guess it would, if we're talking about like how it impacts each other. I'm noticing that my customers are spending a little bit less right now. I don't think it's because of they're fearing a recession so much as they want to see what's going to happen with the with tariffs and stuff before they start making capital investments.
All right. Well, let me just throw this out as I want to go around the horn one more time and give y'all a chance for final thoughts. I want to say that you three guys, I value your friendship. I love all three of you guys. You guys know this. We got to hang out in Strongsville, which was an absolute highlight of my spring, if not year. So I appreciate you guys coming on again with me. Everybody out in the chat, you guys have been fantastic. It's been an hour and 45 minutes. You guys have been absolutely firing comments at us. I love it. Giving each other or giving me some of the noogies, and that's fine. I just want to go around one last time. Petty, final thoughts.
I'm just honored to be on the panel with you guys and be friends. That's all. I always have a great time every time we get together. So thanks for having me. And I hope don't listen to me. Listen to Darren. He's the smartest one here.
Thanks.
Darren, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts is Dan's been breaking my balls tonight. I'm going to tell him that he didn't define recession. He defined stagflation.
Oh boy, he's busting balls back. So the national could be interesting. And go ahead, my friend Tony.
So I just want to make something clear. I'm on this screen because I love collecting baseball cards, and I'm not an expert in anything, but I have fun. So I hope that's evident. And I love spending time with you three guys. I love it. But having all these comments and stuff, I've got a new community around me I didn't have a year ago. So, dude, I'm just eating this up.
These comments are just great. You guys are awesome.
Is.
We really had a good time tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam. I saw Adam's comment. I like Adam's comment. You should put that one up.
All right. I tried to skip that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks again. Hour 47 minutes. This was a complete success. If you would have known the Wi-Fi internet computer meltdown that I was having 15 minutes before we started, the fact that we actually got to have this, I am relieved. Couldn't have spent it with three better guys. Thanks again, everybody out there. Your support is why I am continuing to do these live streams, because as long as you guys come out, I will keep pumping these out. Thank you to everybody. We will see you again next month.
Peace.